whereas the bodhisattvas, the great beings, have not been begotten by the disciples and pratyeka Buddhas. And the same holds good if all those beings were endowed with the virtues of the disciples and pratyeka Buddhas. Because the virtues of the disciples and pratyeka Buddhas have been begotten by the bodhisattvas, and not the other way round. And the same holds good if all those beings were established on the stage of right insight, or on the stage where they become one of the clan, or on any other stage up to the stage of a pratyeka Buddha. And likewise if they had all entered on a bodhisattva's special way of salvation, then their merit would be infinitesimal compared with that of a bodhisattva, a great being. And if again all beings in the great trichliocosm were to become candidates for enlightenment, then their merit would still be infinitesimal compared with that of the Tathagata, the mark of the knowledge of all modes, or of Buddhahood. Subhuti. Should the bodhisattva, the great being, O Lord, who has had his first thought of enlightenment, attend to the knowledge of all modes? The Lord. Yes, he should. The objective support, dominant function, and mode of he. Knowledge of all modes. Subhuti. What, O Lord, is of the knowledge of all modes the existence, what the objective support, what the dominant function, what the mode, what the mark? The Lord. Knowledge of all modes that is non-existent, markless, signless, impassive, non-production, non-manifestation. And again, as to what Subhuti has said, what is the objective support of the knowledge of all modes, what the dominant function, what the mode, what the mark? Its objective support is non-existence, its dominant function is mindful recalling, its mode is calm, its mark is a no-mark. This the objective support of the knowledge of all modes, its dominant function, mark, and mode. The 16 errors. Error with regard to the genesis of the objective support. Subhuti. Is then, just the knowledge of all modes non-existence, or also form, and everything up to the conditioned element? The Lord. The knowledge of all modes is non-existence, and so is form, too. The unconditioned element. And why? Because, Subhuti, the knowledge of all modes has no own being. And what has no own being, that is non-existence. Subhuti. For what reason has the knowledge of all modes no own being? The Lord. It has no own being acting in causal connection. And that which has no own being acting in causal connection, that is non-existence. It is by this method that all dharmas have non-existence for own being. The error with regard to the accurate determination of the own being of the objective support. Moreover, Subhuti, all dharmas have emptiness for own being, the signless, the wishless. Moreover, Subhuti, all dharmas have suchness for own being, the reality limit, the dharma-element. By this method also, Subhuti, should one know that all dharmas have non-existence for own being. Subhuti. If, O Lord, all dharmas have non-existence for their own being, then endowed with which skill in means does the bodhisattva, the great being, who has had his first thought of enlightenment, coursing in the perfection of giving, to in the knowledge of all modes purify the Buddha field and mature beings? The Lord. Just that is the skill in means of the bodhisattva, the great being, that he gets fully acquainted with all dharmas as having non-existence for own being, and yet purifies the Buddha field and matures beings, and that he cognizes that Buddha field and those beings as having non-existence for own being. Furthermore, that bodhisattva, that great being, coursing in the 6 perfections too, in the knowledge of all modes, gets fully acquainted with the path to enlightenment, and he cognizes that path to enlightenment as having non-existence for own being. And that bodhisattva, that great being, who courses in the 6 perfections continues to get more fully acquainted with that path to enlightenment until he has been endowed with the 10 powers of a Tathagata, too. The 18 special dharmas of a Buddha, the great friendliness, and the great compassion. Having stood in that path to enlightenment, he will fulfill the perfections and, then, through a wisdom associated with one single moment, reach the knowledge of all modes. Thereupon he will forsake all his defilements together with their residues through a forsaking which fails to be produced. The error with regard to the cognition of the knowledge of all modes. Surveying the great trichleocosm with the Buddha eye, he does not apprehend non-existence, how much less an existent. It is thus that the Bodhisattva, the great being, should course in the perfection of wisdom, i.e., in all dharmas as having non-existence for own being. And that is just of the Bodhisattva, the great being, the skill in means that he does not apprehend non-existence, how much less an existent. Furthermore, that Bodhisattva, that great being, who, coursing in perfect wisdom, gives a gift, does not have any imaginations about that gift, does not make it into a sign, and does not attend to it by way of existence or non-existence. And likewise for the recipient and the giver. And also that thought of enlightenment he does not apprehend, or make it into a sign or objective support, and he does not review it. And so everything, including the perfection of wisdom, him who develops the perfection of wisdom, and the beings for whose sake he develops it, he does not imagine, does not make into a sign, does not attend to, by way of existence or non-existence. And why? Because, if all dharmas are non-existent, then they have not been made by the Buddha's disciples, or pratyeka Buddhas. For all dharmas are without an agent, devoid of an agent. Subhuti. Are then, O Lord, dharmas devoid of dharmas? The Lord. Yes, they are. Subhuti. If, O Lord, dharmas are devoid of dharmas, how, then, can a dharma which is devoid of itself cognize as existence or non-existence a dharma which is devoid of itself? For a non-existent dharma cannot cognize an existent dharma, nor an existent dharma an existent one, nor a non-existent dharma a non-existent one, nor an existent dharma an existent one. When all dharmas are thus uncognizable, how can it occur to the Bodhisattva, the great being, that there is existence, or non-existence? The Lord. It is on account of worldly convention that the Bodhisattva, the great being who courses in perfect wisdom, points to existence, or non-existence, and not in ultimate truth. The error with regard to the ultimate and conventional truth. Subhuti. Is again, O Lord, worldly convention one thing, and ultimate truth another. The Lord. Worldly convention is not one thing and ultimate truth another. What is the suchness of worldly convention? That is the suchness of ultimate reality. It is because perverted beings do not know or see that suchness, that for their sake the Bodhisattva, the great being, points to existence, or non-existence by way of worldly convention. These beings moreover perceive the five skandhas as existence, and do not cognize them as non-existence. For their sake, in an effort to make them understand that the skandhas are non-existence, has the Bodhisattva spoken of existence and non-existence, but leaving intact the undifferentiatedness of dharmas. It is thus that the Bodhisattva, the great being, should course in the perfection of wisdom. End chapter 64.